Hi there, my name is Kelly Goff. I'm a columnist with the Daily Beast, and I'm here on day 3 of the Women in the World Summit 2014 in the Toyota Solutions studio. I am joined with yet another panelist, Roger Ross Williams, who is an extraordinary filmmaker who does great work bringing attention to important issues, which he's going to tell us a bit about now. On a side note, though, you are also a history maker. You are the first African American to win for producing, directing a film of any kind, the Academy Awards.
I was. Can you believe that? I mean, that's sort of like was even hard for me to believe. And that I was like, what?
When someone told you made
no other
history.
director won, and then I had Spike Lee and John Singleton coming up to me and like bowing down, and it was kind of insane.
But after you got over that part, I hope you said, "This is really exciting that I made history," right?
Very exciting. Very exciting.
You were officially a part of Black history, so that's really incredible.
Yeah.
You're the first. Okay, so let's talk a bit about how you made that history. Talk about your film, Music by Prudence, which I know is the film that you won the Academy Award for. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Music by Prudence is about a severely disabled girl in Zimbabwe who was thrown away because being disabled is considered witchcraft.
Wow.
And she lived like an animal. She didn't really know that she was even human until she was rescued by a school that rescues disabled children. And she and they cleaned her up and they put her in a wheelchair, and she had never been in a wheelchair before. And they heard this amazing sound, and she started to sing, and they realized that it was coming from her, and she has this incredible musical ability. She formed a band. She won a music competition, a tour of Europe. I heard about her. I went over there, made the film. We won the Oscar. She went to the White House. She sang at the Kennedy Center, Oprah, you name it. It's been Oprah, Obama, and Oscar.
Yeah,
Three O's.
it's official. She's arrived. It's official. You've arrived when you have that trifecta. So tell us about the work that you do, though, also covering members of the LGBT community in Uganda, because all of us here in the States have been following just really the horrendous human rights issue facing LGBT people in Uganda. And tell us a little bit about how that inspired your film.
Yeah, well, God Loves Uganda is about really the influence of American fundamentalist evangelicals on public policy and law in Uganda. And the film, really, I follow American evangelicals from Kansas City, the heartland of America, to Uganda, where they preach a very specific biblical message, which they believe in a very sort of, narrow interpretation of the Bible, and that, homosexuality and lots of things, any kind of sex outside of marriage is a sin. But in Uganda, they take that very seriously, especially coming from American evangelicals who put a lot of money in Uganda and build a lot of schools and hospitals and do a lot of good work. But with that comes this ideology, and they want to please the people who are writing the checks. So they go over the top, and they've created this anti-homosexuality bill, which was death by hanging for homosexuals, and now it's life imprisonment, which is a death sentence. So it's an intense film. I spent 3 years making it in Uganda. We premiered in 2013 at Sundance, and we've been taking it around the world.
So I asked some of our other panelists who were here earlier talking about human rights in Africa, and specifically as it pertains to the LGBT community, and I want to get your take on this. It seems that as other countries are moving forward on this issue, specific countries in Africa are taking a very noticeable step or several steps backwards. Is that what's happening, or is it that we're just all learning more about it today because of the internet and media, or is there something specific that's happened recently that's caused things to kind of go backwards?
Yeah, this is a new sort of trend. The level that creating these bills that not only outlaws homosexuality, which was already like the old sodomy laws were already on the books, the old colonialist sodomy laws, but these new laws outlaw the promotion of the quote unquote promotion of homosexuality, meaning that as a journalist you cannot talk about it, you cannot report on it, or you yourself are a criminal and go to jail. So meaning that you have to inform on people who you cannot even if it's your kid who's homosexual, you have to turn them in. It's really this sort of crazy witch hunt. And what is really going on is that African leaders like Museveni, who is really a dictator, and Mugabe in Zimbabwe, they realize that they can use the homosexual as a scapegoat, as a way to distract people, to create like an evil boogeyman, so they can distract people from the real issues, which is corruption, and that they've held office for 30 years, and that people don't have food or water. So that's the real issue. So they can actually create this like monster that people can protest in the streets, and they can take out all their frustration because they can't protest the government. They'd be killed.
Can I ask ask you a question though? And I know this sounds somewhat simplistic, but I often wonder about this. Even people here in the States. Because I was raised in the Christian faith and raised in the church, and sort of my litmus test for whether or not someone really is a bigot when it comes to their religious faith is I ask them if they're kind of focusing on issues equally. So, for instance, I know of churches where they say we don't. If you live with your boyfriend before marriage, we're uncomfortable with that. In the same way that we are uncomfortable with gay marriage, but there are a lot of places where people actually just seem obsessed with this one issue, and I've never fully understood that, and that's what this sounds like to me. What is the obsession with the singular issue of being gay? Where does that come from?
I think that they're obsessed because sex sells. Sex is people really get passionate and engaged about sex. In my film, there's a pastor who shows, a Ugandan pastor who gets funded by a lot of megachurches in America, who shows gay porn in church to incite people into violence. So he gets people so emotional, and he shows extreme, it's just extreme perverted stuff, and he shows that to say, look at what these people are doing. They're like animals.
Or at least he tells people that's why he's watching gay porn.
Yeah, exactly. Why is he watching gay porn is really the question that we like. Yeah, and this is a guy, Martin Sempa, who is. He throws these massive anti-gay rallies with like pictures of a guy bent over, like standing behind another guy with a circle and X through it, and he has made his name. He's become famous
like
in
the
Uganda.
Fred Phelps of Uganda.
Yes, he's the Fred Phelps of Uganda, exactly. He's made his name doing that, and he gets more money from American conservatives who are really frustrated at home to do that, and they're like
because they're losing battles here, so they feel like they're
here.
Expanding to other countries.
Yeah.
But what it almost makes me think of is it's sort of like how in this country it's very tough to get to tough laws on drunk drivers. And what I finally realized is because a lot of our legislators like to drink, right?
Exactly.
And so if they actually focus on an issue like that, then all of them would get in trouble.
Exactly.
So instead they pick on other issues that might affect, like low-level drug crimes, where they think, I don't deal low-level drugs, so that's not going to affect me, but drunk driving might actually affect me. And that's what this sounds a little bit like, which is if the pastor's focused on just premarital sex, for instance, that might take out too much of the congregation. So we're going to obsessively harass and pick on.
Yeah, and it's a group of people who are totally vulnerable, who are they're living in the community where they've been ostracized from their families and discriminated against. So they're a total vulnerable population. It's if you pick on a heterosexual, they do talk about abstinence only is pretty much a government policy.
How's that working out for them?
Yeah, I know. Well, I've interviewed women who actually, young girls. I've interviewed a woman who was raped. She got pregnant. She was so ashamed in her church, she tried to self-abort. This happens a lot. And a lot of women end up bleeding to death because they use sticks. They use anything to try to abort because they feel they've sinned. I was like, well, you were raped. She's like, it doesn't matter. I'm born again and I'm a sinner. And I think that it's all the message of the Bible has gotten all sort of convoluted and they've taken it to this extreme. And these faith leaders and even American politicians of faith who go there to Uganda. Uganda is very popular with a lot of popular senators from the family, from the fellowship, the evangelical group in the Senate, and they go there and they they're in like heaven because they can as the people in my film tell me.
They can say things there that they can't say here.
Yes, and they can go anywhere. They can knock on any door. They can go into schools. They're welcome. The doors are open. They're like, our doors are slammed in our face in America. There we are welcome because it's a Christian nation. It's 86% Christian. But that nation was rebuilt by American evangelicals because after the fall of Idi Amin.
Wow.
After the fall of Idi Amin it had the highest HIV and AIDS rate. Idi Amin wiped out a lot of people. It was a devastated country. It's the youngest population on the planet.
Oh my gosh.
So they went in and they built schools and hospitals, and that's really great.
So
that's
people
really
revere
great
them
work.
for the...
They revere them for coming in and helping to rebuild their country. And they've raised over 30 years. One of the evangelicals in my film from Kansas City, he was there the day Idi Amin fell 30 years ago with a group of American evangelicals there to take that country as a Christian nation.
So can you tell people, because I know we're almost out of time here, how can people who care about this issue and want to make a difference help?
There are a lot of things you can do. You can go to our website, godlovesuganda.com, and the Take Action page on our website. There are 10 things you can do, so you can get involved at any level. If you want to donate to a faith organization that is inclusive and doing good work and actually has a clinic that offers, because HIV and AIDS, if you are HIV positive, you cannot go to a clinic in Uganda if you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, that you'll be turned away. So they offer those services. You can sign a petition. There's 10 ways you can get involved. So it's really important that people actually speak up about this issue, and it's actually people of faith actually speak up and say this doesn't represent all people of faith.
Right.
These people are fringe, and offer an alternative message in Uganda for people, the progressives. There's no progressive voice of faith in Uganda.
Well, I think, this is maybe just hopeful and wishful thinking on my part, because I can sometimes be a bit of an optimistic dreamer. But, perhaps what could end up happening is what happened in this country with Fred Phelps, where he actually became the face of faith that other people of faith did not want to be associated with.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of, I think, helped some people turn a corner here in this country on certain issues. So possibly that will happen.
I think so. And there are Ugandan pastors who are doing great work. There's one in my film, Bishop Christopher Sinyanja, who's doing amazing work and has a clinic and an inclusive church. And so there is hope.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us about your work,
Thank
Roger.
you.
It's
Thank you.
really great having you here, and
Great to
I look
be
forward
here.
to seeing the film. Thanks so much for joining us here again in the Toyota Solutions studio here at the Women in the World Summit 2014.